Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here in my quaint little studio. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and this is the show where we talk about those things that we just love. Movies and movie news, TV and streaming, all that good stuff, the stuff that brings us joy and makes our heart smiles. That's what we're here to discuss today. I'm joined, of course, today by writer, director, producer, coming to us from the Robservatory, one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, I cannot believe it's 2026.
It is. It's a new year. What did you end up doing for New Year's?
I did a show. I did a long internet show on my channel, and it was really fun because Brett Pierce, one half of the directing duo who made The Wretched, which had that #1 during the pandemic, their horror film, The Wretched, they just finished shooting The Wretched Devours. And he came on the show, and so did Jeffrey Reddick, who created the Final Destination franchise.
Oh, very cool.
Talk some horror, yeah.
Very nice. And we hope that you guys had a wonderful New Year's as well. Of course, I did a little stream yesterday, but this is now officially our second show of the year. And we got a couple of things to discuss. And that leads us to, what is today's show's going to be like? Well, we are going to start off by talking about a few topics we have lined up for you guys. It is still like the turn of it's New Year's week, so news is a little bit thin, but we've got some pretty cool subjects lined up for you guys. But then in the second part of the show, that's when we're going to take your live comments and questions. So if you guys have a thought, theory, opinion, point of view, or a question that you'd like us to address, go ahead and use the super chat feature in our live chat. Now, that means you've got to be watching the show live. But if you are watching us live, go ahead and use the super chat feature, fire in that topic or question. And as long as I deem it appropriate to be used on the show, we'll address it in the second part of the show. All right, guys. With that down, let's get things started off here, and we're going to start with this. Now, of course, Stranger Things just had its finale. We talked about it yesterday. Overall, I didn't think the finale stuck the landing, but I didn't think it botched the landing either, and I thought the last 7 minutes were absolutely amazing. But some of you may know, and some of you probably even participated in, the fact that Stranger Things actually went to theaters for New Year's. And now we're getting the results, because according to Deadline, it did great. Listen to this. Deadline writes the following. Sources are telling us this morning that Stranger Things finale cleared well north of $25 million, possibly even $30 million in concession cash to movie theaters over its New Year's Eve and New Year's Day play. Of that figure, $15 million was generated by the #1 circuit AMC theaters, off an attendance of 753,000 people. By comparison, 20th Century Studios' Avatar: Fire and Ash, the #1 grossing film of the season, made a combined $23.7 million over the New Year's and New Year's Day. All right. So, first of all, the one thing we got to kind of make sure we point out here is the fact that this was not a traditional box office take. You could not buy tickets for this. What you had to do was buy a concession stand voucher. So for a lot of the theaters, the way it would work is you would reserve a seat by buying a $20 voucher at the concession stand. That means you didn't have to pay for a ticket, and when you get to the theater, you could use that $20 voucher to actually buy concessions. In essence, the ticket was free, and then you got $20 worth of concession stands. Now, before we go into that $25 million number, though, Rob, there's a really interesting thing that they add on here that I don't think is just interesting for this Stranger Things discussion, but I actually kind of think for like the discussion surrounding Netflix and why they maybe lean away from theatrical for their own original movies a little bit more, because Deadline went on to say this. Exhibition, that's movie theaters, couldn't charge for tickets to the Netflix event given the cast's contractual terms for residuals. Hence, the streamer and movie theaters got around this by reserving seats with concession vouchers. At AMC theaters, such a concession voucher costs $20 per seat at 231 locations. AMC had a bit more than a third of the total theater count showing Stranger Things. AMC estimates that more than half of all Stranger Things fans watched the finale in a movie theater, or to watch movies in the movie theater, did so at an AMC venue. Rob, this is really interesting to me that
yeah, it is.
The whole reason they did this concession stand thing was strictly because they could not sell tickets, because according to the contracts of the actors in Stranger Things, if the movie made box office, then a cut of that box office would go to actors. And so they wanted to avoid that. And so they said, well, movie tickets are free. We're just going to sell vouchers at the concession stand. Some creative, finding loopholes there. But it also makes me wonder if that's part of the reason with those contracts and everything, if that's part of the reason why Netflix, for their own original movies, they've avoided more of a wide theatrical thing. Anyway, let's start there, and then let's get into the Stranger Things making as much money as it did. But what do you think about that little caveat in there about, we didn't want it to sell tickets because then it would have kicked in residuals for actors, and they want to avoid that. What did you think about that?
Well, I had personal experience with this. Back when I was working on the Blu-rays for Star Trek: The Next Generation, there was the thought, with these new restorations, they look so good, to put them in the theater. And there were 3 theatrical events, and I learned then that they couldn't make money. They had to be for charity, because Next Generation, because of the very thing, there are guild rules, there's SAG rules, there's WGA rules, there's DGA rules. So they had to make it was a nonprofit thing. And one of the directors, who's no longer with us, Cliff Bowl, who directed The Best of Both Worlds, actually complained to the DGA that there was going to be 1,200 theaters showing Best of Both Worlds that had never been shown in a theater before. So Paramount had to stop making these events in the theater. And it was really unfortunate. So I totally understand, because having a theatrical release and generating money theatrically would kick in. I mean, this is standard practice for anybody who's releasing a movie in theaters. And I think you're absolutely right. For Netflix, it's not just marketing costs. They suddenly have to either carve out something in the contracts that normally there is as far as I know, no residuals with any of their movies. They pay you big money up front. That's why their movies are expensive. And that's it. There are no residuals. People are still getting, there might be pennies in checks, but people are still getting residuals decades after they've made something, but not Netflix. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, I wonder, John, could they just continue doing that? Putting out, and you're just charging for I want to say concessions. It's a really interesting way to go. I don't know if it'll, pass the smell test in the long run, if it wasn't just a weekend long or a special event, but it is interesting. And I would imagine it benefits the theater because they keep all the $20. So they don't have to split any revenue.
Well, see, that was one of the other things that the article kind of brought up, was the fact that this was, because remember, Netflix is getting ready to buy Warner Brothers. Whether that goes through or not, we'll find out in the coming months. But one of the things that was kind of being talked about in the article was, you're right, Netflix got zero money from this. They got no money from putting this in theaters. Instead, it was basically an olive branch. It was a goodwill gesture to the theaters because, like you pointed out, Rob, the theaters kept 100% of the money. In exchange for popcorn and soda and things like that. But every single dollar of this Netflix putting Stranger Things in theaters for those couple days, every single dollar went to the theaters. They got to keep it. And so this was basically kind of like a love letter by Netflix to movie theaters, because, movie theaters are a little bit nervous about Netflix taking over Warner Brothers, which, by the way, Rob, let me sidetrack the discussion just for a second to address something that has gotten wildly out of control online based on a complete misunderstanding and a misreading of something. So in this article in Deadline about all this money that, Stranger Things generated for the movie theaters, in paragraph 8, at the bottom of a paragraph, all right, because some of you guys might have been seeing this bullshit nonsense people are passing around saying, Netflix is planning a 17-day theatrical window for Warner Brothers movies. Guys, stop it. No, they're not. Well, where did this come from? Here's where it came from. Paragraph 8, bottom of a paragraph in a throwaway line. It says this. There's been a lot of, remember, this is in the article about Stranger Things making money for the theaters, okay? But anyway, there's this thing at the bottom that said, there's been a lot of talk about theatrical distribution, so we want to set the record straight. This is the guys at Netflix talking, okay? There's been a lot of talk about theatrical distribution, so we want to set the record straight. We are 100% committed to releasing Warner Brothers films in theaters with industry standard windows. The town continues to worry that what traditional means for Netflix. Now, here's where everybody's getting this completely wrong. In this article in Deadline, they write, sources have told Deadline that Netflix have been proponents of a 17-day window, which would steamroll the theatrical business, while circuits such as AMC believe the line needs to be drawn at 45 days. Guys, that is not Deadline breaking a story that Netflix is planning a 17-day theatrical window for Warner Brothers things. That has been Netflix's philosophy for Netflix movies. Netflix has been very, very, very clear. They are operating Warner Brothers separately from Netflix. Warner Brothers movies will be treated differently than Netflix movies. The 17-day window is something that Netflix has in the past been interested in for Netflix movies. Do you think if Deadline found out exclusively that Netflix is planning to take Warner Brothers and Warner Brothers movies will only have a 17-day window, do you not think that Deadline would not have led today's in the news with that? You think it would be buried in paragraph 8, subsection 4, item 7, down at the bottom of this article as a throw? No, guys, Netflix is not planning a 17-day theatrical window for Warner Brothers films. Please stop spreading that nonsense. That's not what they're doing. I ain't saying that's not something that could happen somewhere down the line, long in the future, but that is not what they're planning on doing. That was not what Deadline was saying. So can people please pull their panties firmly out of anus? Everything is fine. That is not what the article said, and people are completely misinterpreting it and going wildly off base with it. Anyway, I just had to get that in there, Rob. Anyway, Rob, now that we've touched on the 17-day window thing and we've touched on the residual things for Netflix, because remember, Netflix stuff is never made originally, and their contracts with their performers and talent were never drawn up for theatrical. It was for Netflix. Now let's talk about this $25 to $30 million that they got.
Right.
Rob, we always thought it was a good idea when they said they were going to put the finale in theaters. And it was with a small number of theaters. And then in the days leading up to New Year's, we saw the theaters expanding and expanding and expanding. And I had a number of our viewers write in to talk about how they got to watch it in a full house. And it was like one of their favorite viewing experiences and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, what do you think? Are you surprised by that dollar value was able to pull together? And what do you think of it?
Well, I think it's actually, look, it's a good thing. There was a producer back in the day named William Castle, who would do all kinds of crazy things. Like he would have skeletons pop out in theaters, on pulleys that would come across the audience when he made movies like The Tingler. And I think anything that brings a little bit of showmanship back to theaters is a good thing. And look, this was a finale that was over 2 hours long. They obviously spared no expense. I would imagine it played quite well in movie theaters with big audiences. This was a big event. This is 10 years in the making. This is a generational thing. I mean, generations are going to remember Stranger Things. People love it. They grew up with it. And I think it was great to see it work. I'm glad it made money because, I went to a special event to see the season finale of For All Mankind season 4 in the theater. It was just a one-time only showing, but it was great. And everybody who was in that screening was a total fan. I mean, it was packed. We were all there to watch this screening. I'd already seen the screening first, or the show first, but seeing it with an audience was a great experience. And I think all it does is, one, it tells people, look, movie theaters are great. And if you see something that's really well produced and it's something you really want to see, there is no better venue to watch something in than a movie theater. For this, James Cameron, in many of his interviews, he's talked about the fact that movie theaters are the experience when you're truly paying 100% attention to what's up on the screen. I forget what he calls it, but nothing is dragging you away. You are totally focused. And I've always said the same thing. You are much more locked into what you're watching in a movie theater because it's essentially a sensory deprivation tank. And you are focused more than ever on the screen. And it can't help but be a more gratifying experience. And I can't help but believe that people who saw this in the theater really got something they'll remember. Whether you like the finale or not, I mean, certainly it delivered on an epic scale. And I think it was good all the way around. And the fact that movie theaters made 25, 30 million bucks off this, and they didn't have to give any of that money back, was a win-win for everybody. The people who went had a great time. They only had to pay 20 bucks. I would have paid 20 bucks with no concessions, and they had a good time, and they're never going to forget it. They had a great experience. You've heard from viewers already. I don't think that there's any downside to this. What it does, though, bring up, John, is we know that, like, Warner Brothers made Friends. And we know that Netflix paid $100 million to broadcast Friends just in 2019. So what's really interesting is Netflix can make movies through Warner Brothers, and they have to pay people residuals in the traditional way. So in buying Netflix, it never really occurred to me that Warner Brothers, how it's going to feed Netflix. Are they going to have to pay licensing fees? I know they're paying themselves, but it's a way that they can work with the guilds, that they can also, Warner Brothers will still make movies the way the DGA, the way the WGA, the way SAG wants. There's residual structure there built in, and it solves a problem Netflix has had, which is no residuals. That's all right, because we'll make it through Warner Brothers. I don't know how that's all going to play out, but I think it's a good thing. It was something I'd never considered before.
I heard from a number of our viewers who went to go see the Stranger Things finale in theaters. And, for me, it was okay. Like, the finale was pretty good. Again, a pretty solid first half. I hated the second half, but the last 7 minutes with them playing Dungeons and Dragons to me was chef's kiss, absolute perfection. So it was overall, I'm okay. It was all right. But the people I talked to, every single person, Rob, that I talked to who watched Stranger Things in the theaters loved it. And I think that had a lot to do with the environment. Because
it's the experiential event you're always talking about.
Exactly. It's that experience. Like, people wrote in telling me that people came in dressed up in cosplay for it, and everybody was cheering together and oohing and awing together, and at some points crying together. And they just said that elevated the experience, which once again is reason number 714 about why watching something in a movie theater is always, without exception, the better experience. Yep. So I'm glad that people who are fans of Stranger Things were able to have that little experience. But by the way, just quick thoughts, Rob. I already went fully into my kind of thoughts and review about the finale, but I just wanted your quick thoughts on the way it wrapped up with that final episode. How did you feel about it?
Along with other people, joked. I said it had more endings than Return of the King, but I thought it was good. I don't know what you would have expected. I did find the vanquishing of our friend here quite satisfying, the way they did it, but I was surprised that this happened a little bit over the halfway mark, and they really wanted to tug on those heartstrings and give these characters a goodbye. I would have strung out the finale a little bit more and given people more bang for their buck and made it even more apocalyptic and epic than it was. And like you'd pointed out, we talked earlier before the show started, I would have truncated the ending a little bit, and given people more bang, and then the emotional component, you could have hit them hard with 15 minutes as opposed to an hour.
What do you think about this? I said this on my show yesterday. I said what I think would have made it like 30% better is if halfway through the episode, they win, which is what happened. And then up on screen comes 18 months later, which is what happens at 18 months later. And then from 18 months later, it just went right to the 5 kids playing Dungeons and Dragons in the basement. I think it would have made the episode a lot shorter, sure. But I mean, I think that just would have made for a much better episode overall.
Well, also they didn't look, there are shows that did great season ending wrap-ups, like The Wire. The Wire would always have a montage at the end with all the characters, and it was great. And Friday Night Lights, at the end of their last season, I think they also went 5 seasons, I think, it was a quick montage. It didn't last for an hour, and it really hit you in the feels because it was one feel after another, and you're like, oh my God. But this just, it took its time, and I had to think that they could have made it more epic, although I gotta say, that destruction scene, the effects when it was all being wiped clean by the wrath of God was pretty dope, dude. There was some really cool stuff, but I wanted it bigger.
Yeah, I remember me and Ann were talking about that. I don't know how big you can make it when it's really just a bunch of kids fighting them, but
yeah, I know.
Anyway, it is what it is. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? That Stranger Things only being in there for New Year's, it made like $25 to $30 million for the movie theaters, which is astounding. What kind of ramifications do you think that could have moving forward? Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Very quietly, Rob, do you know in like 3 weeks, a brand new Marvel show drops? Wonder Man.
Dude, I'm so excited. I think their viral marketing, which has gone completely unnoticed, is finally picking up steam. I'm excited.
Well, I'm glad you brought up. So Wonder Man's opening in 3 weeks, and I'm glad you brought up the marketing because I think the marketing has sucked. And I mean that in the sense that it has done nothing to get me excited. And that's weird.
But all that Trevor Slattery stuff's been hilarious.
Yeah, it's been funny, but
no one knows it's even out there.
And believe me, I'm looking forward to seeing Ben Kingsley in that role. I loved from day one when they announced that Yahya Abdul-Mateen was going to be in it because he's a fabulous actor. But they have done nothing to get me excited for this show until today. They dropped a brand new trailer for Wonder Man. And for the very first time, I actually feel myself getting a little bit excited for this show.
Yeah, man.
It actually gave me insight into the feel of the show. What's the DNA of it going to be like? What's the kind of temperature I expect as I go throughout it? What's the environment of it like? And again, Ben Kingsley as Trevor has been one of the low-key gems, I think, Rob, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, I put him right up there with Michael Pena's Luis, who is, where the hell has Michael Pena been? That character is a treasure. He should be used more in the MCU. But anyway, so I think Trevor is the next guy like that. Like, I know, like a lot of other people, I didn't really get fully on board with him when he appeared in Iron Man. But then he did the little internet shorts, which were great. And then I thought he was absolutely fantastic in Shang-Chi. And now I really love the character and I want to see more of him. But like I said, Rob, this trailer comes out and it gave me, I'm not saying it will feel like this. I'm just saying that the trailer made it feel a little bit to me like Wonder Man is going to be Disney Plus's answer to the studio. And I think it's going to have a little bit of the studio DNA in it. I think it's going to have a little bit of Entourage DNA in it. I think it's going to have a little bit of, I don't know, like a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy or a Spider-Man feel to it a little bit. By the way, we saw one of the characters who was in a recent Spider-Man movie in there as well. And I just ended up really liking the show, the whole thing about him starting to manifest his powers, the whole thing about being stopped and, saying, oh, we need to make sure that you don't have any powers and all that kind of stuff. But let's go over and see what Deadline wrote about this. In talking about the trailer, Deadline said this: Wonder Man follows aspiring actor Simon Williams, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who is struggling to get his career off the ground, like everybody I know in this town. During a chance meeting with Trevor Slattery, Ben Kingsley, an actor whose biggest roles may well be behind him, Simon learns that legendary director Von Kovac, who of course was in Superman, is remaking the superhero film Wonder Man. These two actors at opposite ends of their careers doggedly pursue life-changing roles in this film as audiences get a peek behind the curtain of the entertainment industry per the official description. Now, it goes on to say this. While Simon is desperately trying to break through in Hollywood as the star of the rebooted superhero film, he is quietly developing superpowers of his own. At one point in the trailer, Simon is asked to sign a document by Agent Cleary, played by Arian Moayed, I hope I'm saying his name right, in a reprisal of his role from 2021's Spider-Man No Way Home, shortly before his secret powers erupt. Cleary is a high-ranking agent from the government agency known as the Department of Damage Control, who is responsible for dealing with the aftermath of events caused by superpowered individuals, and he quickly labels Simon as an extraordinary threat. Rob, like I said, the trailers they've had up till now, the little things I've seen, the campaign has left me wildly underwhelmed, to the point that here we are 3 weeks away from this show coming out, and we still know very, very little about it. This is like 48 hours ago. We still know very, very little about it. And by the way, it doesn't elicit a lot of confidence in me that they're going to drop the whole series at once. That is not their normal playbook. That is not what they normally do. And it does not scream confidence to me at all. Because didn't they do the same thing with Ironheart? I think and that show was not very good. Had its moments, has some upside, but overall not very good. So I'm not thrilled by that. That doesn't scream confidence to me. Like, they don't believe if they release this weekly that the audience would build. So that's a little questionable to me. But I got to give credit where credit's due, Rob. This trailer looked great. And it kind of, for the very first time, has got me kind of excited to go watch this. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to see the new Wonder Man trailer. What stood out to you? What were your favorite parts? And what did you think about the trailer overall?
Well, John, not last year at Comic-Con, not 2025, but in 2024 Comic-Con, I was talking to somebody who actually worked for Marvel that said this show is really good. So that was a year and a half ago. And I've been wanting to see this, and they showed us a few glimpses. And I have been very excited for this show. I love when they're delving into other, like, the Marvel Universe is not just superheroes. I mean, most of it's just normal people living their lives like us. And I love the idea where you take things that are not traditionally superhero oriented, like, say, Hollywood, and putting a superhero or a clandestine superhero or somebody with superpowers in that position. I love seeing that kind of dichotomy play out. So to me, and bringing in Ben Kingsley, one of the world's great actors, Academy Award winner for Gandhi, to see him in this, I'm all in. I mean, I'm really excited for this, I have to say. And I hope it's good, because I think for Marvel, it's a big swing. And I think this is only the first. They've got 2 shows coming out, the other being Vision, Terry Metalis, who did Picard Season 3, and 12 Monkeys, his Vision Quest, I can't wait for either, because they're both unconventional shows. And I think that if this works, it gives more fuel to the fire that Marvel can give us more one-offs. Like, I mean, look, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. I loved Werewolf by Night. I hope this is great, because it shows that we can break out of the mold a little bit, and we'll get more diversity of the kinds of shows they can do. And I think that's great. And by the way, I love these 2 actors, both of them. I love them both. I can't wait to see some weird fish out of water buddy cop story with the 2 of them trying to make their way in Hollywood. You know what sells me on this, John? If there were no superheroes in this show and no superpowers, I would still want to watch it.
Yeah. I think that's probably the key about why this trailer might have turned it around for me, because you can already tell that Yaya and Ben Kingsley, they very quickly developed a really great chemistry.
Yeah.
And you can just even tell them. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think that's the part that put it over for me, is that this show looks interesting even without, Wonder Man discovering he has powers and smashing things. Like, even if you take that out, this show that this trailer portrays actually looks pretty good.
It does. And I did feel that way about She-Hulk. I thought She-Hulk was going to be great, but they didn't stick to their own premise. And it kind of was floundering. I thought, the first episode, I think we all kind of liked it, and then it went astray. And I hope that doesn't happen with this show, but something tells me it's not going to. And plus, because it has the added, obviously, the entertainment business, so I'm curious to see what they do with it. But just the way it's portrayed, I mean, these are not world famous people. These are people with foibles, and I love the fact that they've made Ben Kingsley's character just nuts. He's just this crazy actor. It's just, and they've been doing all this viral marketing with him that I've been delighted by. And it has no traction. Nobody's talking about it on social media. If you seek it out, it's pretty funny.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad you brought up She-Hulk, because I think herein lies the biggest danger for Wonder Man. Because one of the things the trailer kind of hints to us, and that worked for me, was this looks like it's going to be really funny. Yeah. Especially with Trevor. Now, here's the danger. For me, I think She-Hulk didn't work for you and didn't work for me for two different reasons. Because for me, I think She-Hulk would have, at the end of the day, been a really good show if their horrible attempts at humor actually were funny and worked. Because to me, nothing will kill a project, a show, a movie faster than one that is supposed to be a comedy and is dreadfully unfunny. And to me, that's where She-Hulk fell apart. Like, everything they tried just felt desperate. The jokes, none of the jokes landed. Well, some of them did. Very few did.
The writing staff admittedly didn't even get it.
Yeah, they didn't understand what they were doing, and that's why it fell apart.
Burns' run of the comic.
Because you and I agree. Like, the first episode was like, okay, here we go. This show could be pretty damn good. And then it just went off the rails. And that, I think, is the biggest potential Achilles heel for Wonder Man now, because clearly it's set up that it's meant to have some really good humor. And if the humor doesn't land the way it didn't land in She-Hulk, it could derail this show really fast. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right. And they're billing it as a comedy. I mean, they're leaning into, with this marketing, the fact that it's going to be funny. Well, it better be funny. Because there's something inherent about trying to take people with superpowers exist in the real world. That's that movie Hancock with Will Smith, I thought did some of that. It didn't entirely work, but there's something inherent about it that's kind of funny. And like with She-Hulk, they have this great premise, using a superhero to prosecute cases that dealt with the ramifications of superheroics. And then they just abandoned that. They didn't know what they wanted to do with it. And it was so frustrating. And I hope this isn't the case. I really do.
All right, guys. Question is for you now. What do you think about this new trailer for Wonder Man? I got to say, nothing they have done up until this point has gotten me interested in this show, but this trailer is kind of starting to turn me around. I'm now kind of looking forward to it. It's coming out in just a little over 3 weeks. Whatever you guys thought about it, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, it is a brand new year, 2026, and we've already talked about, our favorite films of the year, the worst films of the year, the movies we're looking forward to the most in 2026. But, we are a movie news show. We talk about all the things that pop up in the world of movies and TV and streaming. And Rob, I thought it might be fun if we took a little time here to discuss our predictions, our forecast, big major things that we think we can expect to see happen in 2026. And then maybe at the end of the year, a year from now, we'll revisit this video
Sure.
and see how close we were. So I want to give you guys 5 of my predictions for this year. Now, these are obviously not the only 5 predictions I have, but 5 big key predictions that I have. And we're going to run through them here, and then we're going to get 5 from Rob as well. And we're going to discuss the topics at hand. So let's jump over to this. Here are my 5 predictions for 2026. Starting with our first one, Lucasfilm leadership. Kathleen Kennedy isn't going anywhere. She's not leaving. Now, some of you, if you've watched my show for any period of time, you know that in around early 2024, I told you guys that I got told that it was a done deal. Kathleen Kennedy was out as the head of Lucasfilm, and that it would be somewhere around the end of the year, the end of 2024, that she would finally go. Now, you guys know I am of 2 things that are both equally true. Kathleen Kennedy is one of the greatest Hollywood producers of all time. You're an absolute moron if you don't acknowledge that. Her resume speaks for itself. That is true. But at the same time, just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at another. And I think she's been an absolutely terrible president at Lucasfilm. And I think she should go back to being one of the best Hollywood producers because she has not been good. And I've gone over my reasons ad nauseum about why I think she's been a terrible president at Lucasfilm. Not that I hate Kathleen Kennedy. I absolutely do not. I just don't think that's the job for her. And anyway, so I told you guys I got told this, she was out. And then after I told you guys that, several big outlets also started reporting that they had gotten the same information. But guess what happened? The end of 2024 came and went, and Kathleen Kennedy was still there. And then the end of 2025 came and went, and Kathleen Kennedy was still there. And I am now predicting, Rob, that the end of 2026 will come and go, and Kathleen Kennedy will still be there. And the reason I'm making this prediction is because I think the Star Wars thing that has the best shot right now of marking a turnaround is the upcoming Starfighter movie. And that doesn't come out till 2027. So my prediction for 2026 is that Lucasfilm will still see Kathleen Kennedy at the helm until the end of 2026, until at least 2027, because I don't think she's going to go anywhere until Starfighter comes out and it gives her an opportunity to leave on a relative high note. So that's my prediction. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I think you're absolutely correct about that. I mean,
all right.
You have 5. I agreed with all, just so you know, with all of yours that you sent me this morning. I thought they were all very astute.
Well, then let's get on then now, shall we, to the next one. So that's my first
But by
prediction.
the way, I mean, I have to say, people forget the Kathleen Kennedy issue. Do you know she's a member of that Kennedy family? The JFK Kennedy Center.
I honestly didn't know that. She's actually a Kennedy?
Yeah, she's an actual Kennedy. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. See, I learn something new every day.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah.
Let's get on to the next thing here then. So that was the one prediction. Now let's move on to prediction number 2. And my second prediction for 2026 is that a huge box office resurgence is going to happen. The box office will have its biggest year since the pandemic. Now, that's not a going way out there in left field prediction. That is something that has been talked about. There are other, entities out there that are kind of predicting this as well. A lot of the industry is predicting this as well, that it will be this big, big major thing. And listen to some of the movies coming out in 2026 that back this up. Project Hail Mary. By the way, Rob, I don't remember if you were on the show with me. Do you know what the number one trailer, the most viewed trailer of 2025 was? Any guess? No. Just take a guess.
Well, I would say Project Hail Mary.
That's a fine guess. It's a fine guess. It was the Devil Wears Prada 2 teaser.
Okay.
Was
totally
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember.
Well, you've been saying don't sleep on this movie because The Devil Wears Prada 2 is one of those. It's been almost 20 years, or it has been 20 years. Everybody always forgets because most of us on these talking about movies and things, predominantly it's mostly a male dominated space. But
Yes.
when a female friendly film comes along, that's why I said, everyone still says, Captain Marvel made money because it was between Infinity War and Endgame. I'm like, that's true, but it
No, it's
also
not.
gave.
That's, by the way, that's not true. Because
Well,
if it was the only Marvel movie that came out between Infinity War and Endgame, maybe it would be true. But
yeah,
there
but
were
I said
two
it was
Marvel
it,
movies that came out in between, and one of them came nowhere near $1 billion.
but it served the female audience, and it served the female audience well, which is something that we forget. And I'll tell you something: Devil Wears Prada 2. Every daughter and mother are going to go see that movie because it's not just about. It's really about Meryl Streep is every woman's mother, and Anne Hathaway is every daughter. And that relationship that they have is metaphorically about every mom and daughter that ever existed on planet Earth. So that's why that film is going to be huge.
Yeah, it's going, again, I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be $1 billion film, but I've had women in my life who were literally in tears when they were watching it. I mean, so it's going to be big. It's going to be big. So we got Project Hail Mary is coming, Rob, in 2026. Devil Wears Prada 2, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, a new Hunger Games film. The next Jumanji movie is coming out, don't forget. The Odyssey, Dune Part 3, Michael, which is probably going to be $1 billion film.
Toy Story 5.
Toy Story 5, Moana live action, The Mandalorian and Grogu, Super Mario Brothers, Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Doomsday. There's like 6 or 7 of these films that are legit potential $1 billion films. And a couple of these have, could, if they exceed, if they overperform, could hit the $1 billion mark as well. I mean, so that prediction, again, that 2026 will easily be the biggest year we've had the box office since 2019, which was the last full year we had prior to the pandemic. Rob, again, I'll throw it to you. Your thoughts on that prediction?
100%. And it 100%. And it ties in with one of my predictions, if I might add, because it goes there. I think that Avengers Doomsday is going to become the highest.
Wait. No. I thought you were going to say something else. Hold that one.
Okay.
Hold that one till a little bit later, because I know the one you're going to say. I want you to hold it till a little bit later. All right. Let's move on to prediction 3. So first prediction, Kathleen Kennedy will still be there by the end of 2026, because I don't think she's going to go anywhere until Starfighter comes out. Prediction number 2, box office resurgence is going to be the biggest year at the box office since 2019. That moves us on to our next one. Streaming consolidation. Streaming bundles are going to become the norm. Streaming bundles are going to become the norm. We've already seen some experimentation with this. Now, and I'm not talking about Disney owns Hulu, Disney owns Disney Plus, putting that. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Peacock bundled with HBO, bundled with something else for a lower price. Even right now, I think it might have been Verizon that was fooling around with the Disney Plus, HBO Max, Hulu bundle deal, where the ultimate price of it was about 35% cheaper than if you had each one of them individually. We're going to start seeing places like Roku, maybe even Apple TV, things like that will offer these bundles where you can get pick 2 or pick 4 or pick 5, and you'll end up getting like 30% discount for getting them all together. Rob, we've already seen through the little experimentation they've been doing with some of these bundles already, because you and I agree that the number one enemy of streaming services is churn. When people just get it for a few weeks to watch the show they want to watch, then cancel, right? They want to stop that. And they have already shown that when people have bundled packages, they are less likely to churn. And so I think by the end of 2026, we are going to see some major moves incorporating bundles into it. Do you agree, disagree? How do you think that'll play out? What do you think?
I think I totally agree with that, because it's getting to the point where, look, we're reaching a saturation point with everything, whether it's subscriptions that you have for software, whether it's apps you're paying for, streaming services. It's just getting to the point where there's only so much money to go around. And streaming services are going to suffer, I think, in the long run, more and more churn unless they figure out something to stabilize this from happening. And that I think the obvious thing to do is you go into bundle up, getting 3 streaming services to bundle or more will stabilize the subscription model and it will eliminate churn. You just have to figure out what are those bundles going to be and which ones are the ones that you most want. So I think it has, not only will it happen, it has to happen.
All right. Let's get on then to my fourth prediction. Because if the first one is Kathleen Kennedy not leaving, the box office resurgence, bundling, here's prediction number 4. AI transparency, in the sense that an AI identification system like all organic or all natural labels that get put on certain foods in like grocery stores and stuff like that will come out. See, there's a movement, and I've seen conversations about this around there too. There's a movement that says that either, ban AI or you should have AI warning labels on anything that is fake and AI. But I've heard arguments say it's going to be easier to label something that is free of AI. And I think you're going to start to see that. I think somewhere around the middle of the year, you're going to have, it'll start with YouTube and it'll start with certain creators on YouTube. But I think it'll spread that this movie was completely created by artists and whatever and is free from AI generation. I think that's going to become a label that some shows, streamers, movies are going to use to as a badge of honor, a badge of pride or something like that. But yeah, I think instead of seeing badges warning that this content contains elements that were generated with AI, instead of going that route, they're going to go the other route where people get to slap a label on it saying this movie is AI free. I think that's going to become something, Rob, in this year that you're going to start to see some of these studios start to employ. It's a bigger topic for sure, but I don't know. Agree with that? Disagree with that? Which direction do you see that going in?
Oh, I totally agree with that. I've made no secret of the fact that I've been dabbling in various things with AI. I made an album. Now I'm working on making an app, and I think there's something that is, I think, that isn't really considered, is that a lot of people think you just write a prompt, hit a button, and you come up with a result. That's true. You can do that. But
Rob seems to we got Rob froze.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh, there he is. You're back. You're back.
I think AI can be a very powerful tool when it's employed by humans. Now, what's going to happen is, I think that label will be, there's going to be various, like, this is 100% AI generated. This was human beings using 50% AI or using AI tools. Or, like you said, there is going to be the same way you get an organic label. I think this entertainment was organically produced. We're already used to that. And I think something along those lines is going to happen, because I do think that traditional more forms of production are important. And I don't think that we can see AI generated movies now that are very impressive, but I don't know if you can make a fully sustainable 2.5 or hour, 90-minute or 2-hour movie entirely by AI. And I think it's going to be a little while before we're going to be able to be accepting of that kind of thing. And I think we're going to have a problem. AI is going to put a lot of people out of work. So one of the other things about the entertainment business is people are going to want to know that actual human beings are responsible for the entertainment that you're watching. So I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be a label.
All right. Let's now go on to my fifth big prediction for 2026. And that big prediction is this, is that TV season shift is going to happen. More streaming shows are going to start to move, or we're going to hear about them going to start to move to annual seasons. One of the banes of my existence as a streaming fan is this nonsense that season 1 of a show comes out. Yay! And guess what, guys? Only 4 years until season 2. It has been one of the dumbest things. Like, with 99% less technology available to them, TV shows for years have been able to produce 22 episodes every year on schedule, like clockwork, no problem. But now, a 6-episode season needs 3 years to get season 2 out. Hate that. Now, a part of that, I think, is, the whole figuring out, remember, streaming is still a brand new thing. In terms of history, it's really, really a brand new thing, and people getting it worked out. But last year's #1 show, The Pit, guess what's coming out in a couple of days? The 2nd season, just 1 year later. We've already heard, Rob, we talked about it on the show a little while ago, that the showrunners of Daredevil has said Daredevil's going to be an annual show. Daredevil, we're not going to have 3 years between seasons. Daredevil is going to come out a new season every year. That's what Daredevil is going to be. We've started to hear that talk now about other shows as well. And I think as we go through 2026, we are going to get word throughout the year about more and more predominant shows on streaming are going to start moving towards a yearly release of new seasons. I don't think necessarily we're going to get back to proper season episode counts. Like, I don't think we're going to get back to like 20 episodes or anything like that. There will be things like The Pit that I can't remember how many episodes they had, 14 or something like that, which is great. Probably a lot of them will stick around the 8 to 12 range, but
yeah,
it'll be nice to get back to be able to look forward to the new season of a show you love next year. And I think that's going to be one of the trends that we see, not for everything, but I think we're going to see it increase a lot. Rob, agree or disagree, good or bad?
Totally agree, and it's a good thing. I mean, the whole point of these shows is to be entertaining, and if you like a show, I think everybody knows this. When it's so long between seasons, even though they have recaps and things, the momentum you feel toward a show it just disappears, and it's almost like you're watching a brand new show, and you have to start over again and go, "Oh yeah, I remember now." I mean, there have been times when I've watched shows that have taken a long time to come back, and I don't remember the first season at all. Like, who are these people? And I don't like that. I don't think that's what the people who make these shows want. And I think with everything that happens and all the entertainment that's available to us, it's just a natural function of the way things are, the way humans perceive things. If years go by before you see a season, it's not nearly as gratifying. And we've seen it happen, John, when another season of a show will come back and people watch it for the first couple of days or couple of weeks, and then it's out of sight, out of mind again. And that's not a good thing for anybody trying to build an entertainment franchise that has any kind of longevity. You don't want people to be waiting for it.
And here's a question, Rob, I want to put to you. Tell me if you think what I'm saying is basically true or basically not true. One of the most technically post-production heavy, tricky shows to produce of its time was Star Trek: The Next Generation. And they didn't have nearly the amount of tools or anything that they have today. And yet,
26 episodes a season.
Somehow this show found a way that almost like clockwork had its new season debut every single time right up until the point of All Good Things, the final episode, 2 episodes of it. I mean, so I'm kind of over the excuse of, well, there's a lot of post-production. So have other shows, and they found a way to make it work. So I'm ready for them to get to it. So guys, that is my 5 major predictions that by the end of the year, Kathleen Kennedy will still be at Lucasfilm, for good or for bad. We're going to see the biggest box office year since the pandemic. We're going to start to see, it's going to become a normal thing to see on the regular streaming bundles. I think we're going to start to see creators using an AI, free of AI badges of some sorts on their programming. And I think we're going to start hearing about more and more predominant streaming series that are going to be moving themselves towards an annual release schedule. So Rob, those are the ones I have, but you and I were texting earlier this morning and you had a couple of really cool ones. So I throw the floor open to you for a couple of predictions you may have as well to add to this list.
Well, okay. People are going to call me a shill. I don't care. I think that Avengers Doomsday is going to become the highest grossing movie of all time. And look, you'll find out. You'll find out whether I'm right or wrong in a year. But I honestly believe that. I believe that everyone's gonna, they'll. But what about phases 4, 5, and 6, Rob? No. I go back to Colton's video about how this is kind of a direct sequel to Endgame, which it kind of is. And I think that this movie is going to be, it's going to make, as we always say, but it's never really been true. But for this movie, it is true. It's going to make all the money. Now, a lot of people are going to say, how there's no buildup to it. And I'm like, you know what the buildup is? Your entire life, because you know who Dr. Doom is. And there's all these questions about, Robert Downey Jr. coming back and playing a character. I think that's exactly what he's doing. He's playing a character. He's playing Victor Von Doom. We all know who Victor Von Doom is. And if you've read the Secret Wars comic, you kind of know what we're in for. I would suggest going back and looking at that. But I do believe that Avengers Doomsday is going to be the highest grossing movie of all time.
You know what, Rob? Here's the thing. I did a video the other day where I basically broke down, one of the big challenges is going to be facing, and these are true and these are real. There's going to be some obstacles Doomsday with its box office potential because of the fact that, every other Avengers film that has come out has had massive momentum leading into it. Like banger after banger after banger MCU films leading into an Avengers film, right? And this one doesn't have that benefit. This one is actually, coming out at a time when the environment of the MCU is hit or miss. And the overall enthusiasm for the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now is nowhere near as high as it has been historically. That doesn't mean that it's not going to do great. It just says it's got some obstacles it's got to overcome. And I've said for a long time that I think it'll be big, it'll be over $1 billion, but it's not going to be the $2 billion film that, some of the other things have. I've changed my mind on that. Now, I don't know. I don't know that it'll become the #1 box office film of all time as you're predicting. But I don't think you're as crazy for saying that I may have thought you were 2 weeks ago.
Right.
2 weeks ago, I would have certified. I think you would have been certifiable if 2 weeks ago, if you had said to me that Doomsday was going to be the biggest film maybe of all time.
2 weeks ago, I would have called myself certifiable.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge, but I'll say this. Do you know what Avengers Doomsday has going for it that no other Avengers movie had previous to that?
What's that?
Nostalgia. Because we now have nostalgia for the time when Marvel movies were great. And what have we already seen? I think this is what's genius. You know who you've missed? You've missed Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
We're going to give him back to you. You haven't seen him on the big screen in 7 years. You missed after Love and Thunder and the goof fest of that. You've missed God Thor. You've missed Thor. You missed Kenneth Branagh, Shakespearean, powerful Thor. We've given him back to you. You know what you missed? You missed getting the true Cyclops that you've always wanted to see. You knew he was there. You never got him in a movie. You get him back in X-Men 97. You got him back in the animated series, but you never got him. You know what we're going to do? We're not only going to give you Cyclops the way you've never seen him, we're going to put him in Jim Lee's outfit and the animated series outfit, and we're going to show him tear off that visor and wreck shop the way you have always wanted to see, and you never got to. What they're doing in this movie, it's like Walter White cooking up the perfect batch of meth. We're getting the Walter White version of the MCU. We've been getting 65% MCU for the last 5 years. Walter White's going to come along, and when Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers and McFeely and anybody who apparently everybody and their brother is in this movie, they're going to do whatever they can to give us that 98% pure Peruvian flake of the imagination in Avengers Doomsday. And you know what? Because it has to be. It's the greatest Hail Mary in the history of Hollywood, except it's not. They got the tools, they got the talent, they got apparently all the time in the world. It doesn't matter how long the movie is. They got Dr. Victor Von Doom, who Why hasn't even they made a Fantastic Four movie and he doesn't show up until the post-credit scene. I'm telling you, this movie is going to be the Walter White pure meth version of an Avengers movie, and they're going to reclaim their throne, and we're all going to be clapping. I
want to give context because I don't want us to be disingenuous with our audience here. So let me give some context of this. For those of you who don't, maybe you're new around here, you just started watching the show. For those of you who don't watch the show regularly, right up till recently, Rob has been very skeptical about Avengers Doomsday.
Yes.
To the point that he's going, all right, fine, I'm going to choose to look forward to it. I'm not. True. But I'm gonna choose to look forward to it. I don't even. Choice. Well, how many times have you said this, Rob? We don't even know who the Avengers are right now, which is true. Which was true when you would say that all the time. And then in our private conversations, yeah, man, this is gonna be maybe the first Avengers movie that flops and blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, again, we want to make sure we're not disingenuous with our audience here. Blah, blah, like we learn about the movie. And in learning about the movie, we now get the Robert Meyer Burnett you see in front of us today.
Hey,
who is completely gushing about it.
I've always said when you get new information about something,
rational people,
yeah.
When new information is introduced, you reevaluate your position. Yes. That's what intelligent people do.
Yes. And I will tell you this. No one knows how the state of the Marvel universe has been. No one knows it better than Marvel itself. And they knew, like John, you pointed out, the Russo brothers made 4 banger Marvel movies, their most successful movies. So they go back and they get them as the director. They brought back half of the writing staff of those movies and other writers that have done great work. They are giving us, they decided, okay, well, what are we going to do? And they're Walter Whiting this. That's what they're doing. And they're cooking up something good. And I didn't believe that until about 2.5 weeks ago. And now I believe it utterly. And but I'm setting myself up. But I do think it's going to be, I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to get my tickets as soon as they go on sale for the first IMAX 70 millimeter, whatever screening they're going to have. I ain't going to miss it. Because it's going to be a hoot.
Now, we could talk about this all day, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more later.
My next one, you said not to, I got to say this, though, because I think for entertainment news, I think that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the biggest video game of all time. I think it's going to have the biggest launch. I think it's going to have the biggest multiplayer component when they get that cooking. They've delayed it. I expect the same way I think about Avengers Doomsday, I think Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the biggest video game launch of all time, and it's going to quickly become the fastest. It's going to smash a bunch of records, and I wouldn't be surprised if they finally announced the very first Grand Theft Auto movie. With video game franchises going the way they're going, I think Grand Theft Auto, the movie, will show up, and they'll probably get people involved that we wouldn't expect.
Yeah, but here's a big problem with your prediction. You're assuming it comes out in 2026.
Well,
and if we've learned anything, it's like I'm sorry, it's like Blade at this point. At this point, Grand Theft Auto is like Blade. Sure, it'll come out. But okay. But you had another one. Another prediction that I thought was really interesting. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
The short form mobile content?
No, not that one.
Oh, yes. I think we're going to see the first completely AI generated character. We've seen an actress, but we're going to see the first completely AI generated character either star in a movie or a TV show or co-star in a movie or a TV show. Now, that could be a robot in a Star Wars show, but I think it's going to be a human character. I think it's going to be a human looking character. We are going to have the first AI generated character. And I think the voice, it'll be entirely AI generated. It's not going to be voiced by someone else. It's going to be an entire AI character.
Now, okay. I love that prediction. I completely disagree with it, but I love that prediction. I mean, look, I think at some point that's coming. Here's the reason why I'm going to disagree with you, and convince me otherwise if you think there's a way there. But here's the issue I have with that is that I think even with the rapid advancement, I think we're a long way away from that, because it's tricky just to make an all AI, because you sent me an AI generated thing earlier today and it was painful to watch. I mean, it was painful.
Ridiculous.
But now you're talking about creating an AI character and making it 100% match. Like, it's hard enough to make it look and move right when everything's AI generated.
I know.
Having it to actually blend in with and match a physical environment, I don't think we're near that yet. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet. But I mean, I love the prediction. I love that one. So we'll see. We'll see if they're able to get to that point.
I think another prediction is we've seen it with anime, with like K-pop Demon Hunters, but that was pretty much domestically produced. But Demon Slayer, 2026 is going to be the year where international content is going to have its best year ever. Whether it's animation, whether it's music, we're going to see international, and a lot of it, you know, Netflix drives that because Netflix has been putting shows. I mean, they gave us Squid Game, which is Korean. And you know what? I've never heard anybody ever say that they didn't watch Squid Game because it was for a foreign film, whether it was subtitles or they saw it with
I heard a few people say they didn't watch it because they didn't want to read subtitles, but you're right. I never heard anybody say it was because it was foreign.
Yeah, it was foreign. I mean, I think Squid Game proves anybody that had any, like, I've been watching foreign films my whole life, but it shows that a Western sensibility can watch an Eastern sensibility show and love it just as much. And I think we're going to get international content from around the world, which I'm very excited about because I think it's great. And I think it shows there's nothing that unifies a people more than entertainment from all around the world. So I think that's great. And an adjunct to that, another thing I think that's going to rise that we're going to see more and more of is the power of the limited series. We saw like Stranger
we've
Things.
Seen that expand just in the last couple of years.
Yes, and I think it's going to get, and it's shown that you can have a limited series that isn't necessarily contingent upon having year after year after year after year. Like we saw things like The Queen's Gambit and Godless that Scott Frank made. You know, we saw his other department, was it Department D, or the detective show that was set in Scotland? That was his latest miniseries that they're actually renewing. But I think we're going to see more and more of that because you can spend the money, and if it works, if the miniseries like that Department D show or whatever, I forget the name of it, it's Department something. They renewed it because it was good. You know, but I think that we're going to see a lot more limited series shows getting made because they act as, instead of just making a pilot, they work well as a limited show. But if they have extreme success, then you can do a second season without having to commit to a series.
Well, what was the one with Nicole Kidman and the one where they end up murdering the one's husband?
The sister, that's a British one, but
no, it wasn't his sisters. It was called, guys in the live chat, help us out. I think Reese Witherspoon was in it as well.
Yeah, like Pretty Little Liars or
Dirty Secrets or Dirty Lies or whatever it was. Anyway, like that one was supposed to be a limited series.
Right.
But the thing was, it was so wildly successful and everybody wanted another. Big Little Lies. Thank you.
Big Little Lies, yeah.
Damashi was the first one to put that. Big Little Lies. That was supposed to be a limited series, and all of a sudden they did a second season. More recently, Shogun, originally designed to be a limited series, but it was so good, the best thing that's been on television in decades. It was so good and won all the Emmys that they were like, let's do another one. And so I think you're right. I think we're going to see the spreading of that. And, you know, it's almost going to be used like backdoor pilots. I think limited series are going to be used like backdoor pilots in many ways. Anyway, guys, that's all the predictions we have, at least the ones we're going to talk about here today. What did you think about some of the predictions that we had? And do you have any predictions of your own about things that we might be able to expect to see coming in 2026? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that all down, let's get on to the most important part of our show, and we'll end off the week here by taking your live comments and questions, shall we? Now, just so you know, I'm going to be turning off super chats in about, 1 minute. You know what? 1 minute, I'm turning off super chats. We've already got a lot of them in there right now. So if you've got a last second thought or theory or opinion or something you want to fire it on in now. You got a minute or two to do it. But for now, let's jump over and start taking those questions, shall we? And we're going to start off here with, what's our first one? Our first one is, we did Hollow Lord. That was from yesterday. So we'll go to Matan Valensky, who writes, the success of Avatar shows that the audience crave... What? Sorry. All right. The success of Avatar shows that the audience crave romance and sincerity. Then why are blockbusters avoiding romance like the plague and keep doing ironic quips to make fans of themselves a la Marvel? All right. First of all, with all due respect and in the spirit of just fun discussion of amongst movie fans, that's one of the dumbest things I've heard anybody write in a while. First of all, Rob, I don't know about you. Where was the big romance line in Avatar Fire and Ash? Where was the big romance?
Well, I think what he means is, is the family oriented, the idea of, that love perseveres and family. And I mean, I wouldn't say that there was a family. I wasn't unless you're going to talk about Quaritch hooking up with our favorite Mordor Na'vi princess. There was certainly some romance there, but yeah, I think that's what they mean. That I think that's, but in a way, Avatar is essentially a family-friendly franchise that at its core has a family, a nuclear family that even has misfits that have become part of the family. And I think that's what they kind of must mean.
Well, I think it's a ridiculous idea. First of all, it drives me crazy when we as audiences look for formula. Because you know what else? Here's the other thing you say, Avatar had that big sequence where there was floating markets, the big whole, the tradesmen were in those big floating ships. That tells us that the audiences crave big floating ships.
They do, though.
Why don't more movies put big floating ships? And by the way,
I wanted them to come back, just so you know.
Spider-Man and MJ, Tony and Pepper, Thor and Jane. Like, just about, I don't like romances in my big stuff personally, but Oppenheimer had romance. Like just about every, first of all, Avatar was nothing to do with the success. Romance had nothing to do with the success of Avatar. Any more than the fact that the characters had tails. That means the audience craves tails. No, they don't. They made a great movie. That's what audiences crave. Audiences crave great movies. And to say that other big blockbusters don't use romance, yes, they do, sometimes to their detriment. So anyway, I just think that's a foolish one, but that's just me. All right, let's move on here. Next up, Al writes, my top 10 of the year. Ballerina, loved Ballerina. One Battle After Another, Predator Badlands, Naked Gun, Superman, Predator Killer of Killers, Roofman, what's the word I'm looking for? The Phony, Nazi 2, Rental Family, Chainsaw Massacre, or Chainsaw Man, Resi Arc. I don't know what Resi Arc is. Again, I'm so glad other people are putting some Ballerina love in there. That was a movie that deserved way better than it got at the box office, because that was a damn fun movie. I really like that. Dr. Doom writes, knowing what you know about Doomsday, do you think the runtime should be 3+ hours to make it work, or can it be done in 2.5 hours like Infinity War? I think it can be done in 2.5 hours. I think it can, but I also think it will exceed it. Now, whether or not it goes over 3 hours, I don't know, but I think it could be done in a way that's 2.5 hours and work, but I think this movie will be over 2.5 hours. Rob, quick thoughts on that without going into too much?
Look, man, I'd watch this if it were 4 hours long, which it very well could be, which is why I've always believed they should split it into 2 movies. I've
I
been saying that.
guarantee you it will not be 4 hours
I've been
long.
saying it forever. No, but, yeah, no, I think that this movie could be easily be 3 hours long. I think, and also, you know, you look at a movie like, Fire and Ash, that really hasn't really diminished the Avatar franchise if the film delivers the goods.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've seen from these 3 trailers so far, there's a lot of ground this movie has to cover, and they're doing interesting things. I mean, you've got your X-Men contingent, you've got clearly your Thor contingent, you've got your Steve Rogers contingent. I would assume that somehow all these characters come together, and then they have to do some other stuff together. So there's a lot this movie has going on in it, as evidenced by what they've already released. And I would say that this could easily, I mean, look, could you make this movie shorter? Sure. I think these movies, though, if they have the kind of story to support, which I do believe this movie does, I don't think anyone will have a problem sitting for watching this movie if it's over 3 hours.
Yeah, I think it's going to lean closer to 3 than it does to 2.5 at this point. So,
yeah.
All right. Next up, we got Mike Thompson who writes, say you're indeed retired by the end of 2027. Any chance you'd still do spoiler reviews for Secret Wars, Batman 2, Spider-Verse, or Man of Tomorrow? Yeah, I mean, I've said that for a long time, that even when I retire, I'll probably maybe do a weekly podcast, like not a video, but like a weekly podcast, or probably like still do little things like out of theater reactions or stuff like that. I'll probably still do little things like that once I retire. All right. Thanks for that, Mike. Bobby Jackson. So no Tom Holland in Doomsday, but you didn't say no Spider-Man, which doesn't rule out Toby or Andrew. Okay. Very specifically to what you wrote when you said it doesn't rule out Toby and Andrew. I will say that is right. And leave it at that. All right. Next up. Rhino writes, have you seen or heard of No Other Choice? I think it's Korean. If so, your thoughts. Rob, I have not heard of No Other Choice.
It's Park Chan-wook's new movie.
Oh, that's the Park Chan-wook one.
Decision to Leave, yeah. I have yet to see it. It was one of the movies that I said the other day that I'm dying.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of his. I've heard it stars the front man, not the front man who's wearing the mask from Squid Game, who plays a man who is trying to get a job. And apparently he has to eliminate all of his competition. It's supposed to be great.
All right. Let's move on here to Sean. Klieg writes, I'm pissed because in my email from AMC for the Stranger Things finale, they said there wasn't gonna be any trailers, and it was gonna start in time, and it didn't. There was about 15 minutes of trailers. Yeah, that would piss me off too. Now, if you specifically ask the theater and they tell you no trailers and you look at the runtime, and so you know what time you'll be out, you know what you can schedule for when after the movie, you know if you have a babysitter, you can tell them exactly when you'll be home, and they tell you no trailers, and then you show up and you shove in 15 minutes trailers, that would piss me off too. That would totally piss me off too. All right, next up. Madaween writes, hey, John, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. I spent New Year's Eve in the hospital getting a heart stent. Oh, my goodness. New year, new hardware, resting for a few days and ready for a huge movie year. Well, yeah, I had to get a stent put in too. And I couldn't believe how they did it. Like, this is back when I had my 2 heart attacks, like when I was at the gym. But I couldn't believe how they did it. Like they literally, Rob, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when they had to put a stent in for me because I had that peel happened, they literally went in through my thigh. They literally punctured a hole in my thigh and ran like a plumbing snake up through my artery so they didn't open my chest, and they were able to put in a stent right through my thigh. It was the craziest thing. It was amazing. Anyway. All right. Next up. Abraham writes, I hope Jamie Campbell becomes a superstar. He was amazing this season as Henry, Creel/Vecna. I need to see him in more stuff. Very menacing presence. I remember we had him in studio back when I was still at, I can't remember if it was AMC or Collider still, but we had him in studio for a day. He came in for the day and we had him on one of our shows, and he was a really, I don't recall seeing him pop up in a lot of other stuff. I can just tell you he's a really cool guy. Ann and Corey got a bunch of pictures with him, and he was like a really sweet, really nice, down to earth guy. And I hope for all the success in the world for him. All right. Ben the Great writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask who you guys think will be doing better in their universe in 4 years, Marvel or DC?" I mean, we get asked a version of that question almost every day, Rob. Like, in next year, who's better, Marvel or DC? In 10 years, who's better, Marvel or DC? I don't know, but I'll at least say this. When's the last time we could say, I don't know? Like, because for decades now, it's been, hey, who's going to be better next year, Marvel or DC? Well, that was easy. Marvel's going to be doing better. I mean, that was just the answer every single year. I feel like, Rob, we're now at a point where we can honestly say, I don't know. I mean, DC's back. They actually are healthy. They're on the right trajectory. They're having some success. And depending on how 2026 goes, because, you know, Rob, we got Clayface and we got Supergirl coming. I mean, it's actually putting it up there now that DC is actually competitive with Marvel, which is something they have not been for decades. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, I agree. We saw that this year. You know, we saw Superman outgross Thunderbolts, Captain America, Brave New World, and Fantastic Four, not collectively, but individually. And so I do think if DC stays and forges a path, what I do like, John, is I feel under James Gunn, the DC universe feels very different than Marvel. At least it did with what we've seen so far, which I like. And we're going to see our first example of what it looks like when we get a non-James Gunn directed thing in Supergirl. So I think, of course, DC could give Marvel a run for its money. I would like to see both universes, though, exist, because as a comic book reader, I used to buy as many DC books as I bought Marvel books, and I like them both very much. And what I want to see is a little more diversity in these superhero stories we're getting. That's why Supergirl and Clayface are exciting to me. We'll see where they go, but I'm excited.
Yeah, we also got Lanterns coming. I almost forgot about that,
Lanterns
too.
is coming, too.
All right. Next up. Hank Pym, what did Netflix gain from the Stranger Things in theaters? Well, they didn't gain any money because, again, they didn't charge for tickets for it. They gained two things, and one is more important than the other. Thing number one they gained was great buzz. It was another thing that put it in the news cycle. A lot of people talked about it, so they gained great buzz. The second, and I would propose the more important thing that Netflix got from that little Stranger Things experiment, putting it in theaters over New Year's, was goodwill with movie theaters. Because Netflix is about to get in bed with movie theaters because they're about to become the new owners of Warner Brothers. And they've already stated Warner Brothers is absolutely staying a traditional theatrical window with their movies. They're going to be theatrical. And movie theaters and Netflix have not had a good relationship, and they have taken a lot. They've been going out of the way to try to improve that relationship. And hey, you know what, Rob? I don't know about you, but somebody coming up to me and just handing me a card and I open it and there's $25 million in it. That does a lot to warm up the relationship. And
yes,
that's what Netflix just gave the movie theaters. Good question, man. All right, next up. Hank Pym also writes, I know unlikely, but have you and Rob ever talked about doing a show where you all just talk about whatever you want, however long you want, maybe once a month? I honestly don't see any value in that in the YouTube space, because honestly, it has been this way for a long time, Rob, and I think it's becoming more and more about that. Focused content reigns supreme. You know, I mean, we could do a show where we just sit down and talk about anything, but the reality is focused subject matter does better. And because like we could sit here and talk about, I don't know, we could do one episode where we talk about politics, but the thing is people like to tune in to hear Rob and I talk about entertainment. And so that's why 99% of the time we try to avoid anything that's like political in nature. Or or sports. I try to avoid sports as much as I can, and I'll just make little references, but people tune in to watch one thing. Anyway, what were you about to say?
On my show, I ramble on for 2 hours, but the subjects that I ramble on about are usually tangentially related most of the time, either directly or indirectly to what we already cover here. The entertainment business, or I'll talk about comics or books or things like that, but it all has to do with flights of the imagination. And I can already tell you then all of my shows don't do equally well. It's the stuff when I talk about Star Wars, or you talk about Superman, or you talk about Stranger Things. Those are the shows that get the most viewership because you have to discuss what people are most interested in. I wouldn't want to do a show with you where we rambled for 2 hours and nobody watched.
Yeah.
We'd want to have engagement, and also it hurts your brand when you do that too. If you ramble too much about stuff that people aren't interested in, they won't come back to your channel.
Which is why too, like when I got the itch to talk more sports, well then I, created Filthy Sports. And I've said, like, once I retire, oh damn right, I'm launching a political talk YouTube channel. Once I retire, I'm totally going to launch that. But anyway, but yeah, I like to keep things a little bit. That's why we like to keep things a little more focused. All right. Nathan the Baron writes, I mostly agree when you said you didn't enjoy the second half of the Stranger Things finale until they got together for D&D. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. But I love the conversation between Hopper and Mike. Did you like it? Yeah, listen, I think they could have done without it. But out of all the little montage of scenes that they did, whether it was the graduation ceremony, which I thought felt forced, I know it's supposed to be a big tribute to Eddie, but Eddie was a character who was in one season and then gone. Anyway, that's a side. And I love the Eddie character. Don't get me wrong. I did. The marriage proposal scene, the 4 older ones sitting on the rooftop scene, and then, of course, the Hopper and Mike scene. Out of all of those, the one that was most redeemable was probably the Hopper and Mike scene. That one was probably the most redeemable one. I still think it could have done without it. I still think they should have gone from defeating Vecna to 18 months later and gone right to the D&D game. I think that just would have made for a better ending. But if they were going to keep one, I agree. I think that's the one you keep. All right. Thanks for that, Nathan. Earthling writes, did you like Evil Dead Rise? Any anticipation for Evil Dead Burn? Okay. I'm trying to, which one was Evil Dead Rise again? They're starting to get jumped.
In the apartment building with the girls, the sisters. It was good. Yes. I liked it.
I did like that one. That one I liked. But I'd be lying if I said I'm excited for anything more Resident Evil. That doesn't mean, or Evil Dead, I mean. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't watch new stuff and I wouldn't potentially enjoy it, but I was just saying I'd be lying if I said I'm sitting here really excited about it. Rob, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. When I was a young PA, I worked on Army of Darkness. I'm a big fan of the franchise, and I like what Fede Alvarez did with the rebooted Evil Dead. I liked Evil Dead Rise. It was nasty and rude, which I like because that's what the Evil Dead have to be. So I don't know anything about Evil Dead Burn, but I'll go see it. I mean, with bells on. Sign me up. All right. But I don't know anything about it.
Hank writes, big fan of your and Rob's back and forth. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that, dude. Silent Ghost writes, do you believe 11 is dead? And Superman and Lois had my favorite series finale. That wasn't bad. That one wasn't bad, actually. I believe she's dead. Yeah, Rob and I were actually talking about this before the show started today. I believe, yeah, she died. I believe, at least, and maybe we'll find out later she didn't, but I believe she died. All right. Shadowy Fauna writes, I absolutely believe that deciding to watch the Stranger Things finales in theaters boosted the experience and my overall opinion of the finale itself. I think you're 100% right. And Rob, you and I were talking about that because you go in there and here's the thing too. I watch football every week, every day if I can. I watch, MMA every week, every day if I can. And I can sit there and I'll enjoy it. I enjoy it. Like even when Anne's out of the house for the day and on a Sunday, maybe she's out for lunch with friends, I'll sit down and I'll pop on whatever game's on and I'll enjoy watching the football game. But if I can watch it alone or watch it with 20 people in the living room, or if I can go to a place like, what's it called? Cosm. Have you ever been to Cosm yet?
No, but I want to go there.
It's insane. You go there and you're watching the game. Anyway, if I can go to Cosm and watch it with like 400 people, or if I can go to the actual stadium and watch it with, 40,000 people, those are better experiences. It heightens the experience. It makes it better. And I completely agree, man. Like I've heard from a bunch of people who went to go see Stranger Things. And while Rob, I have talked to a lot of people who have watched the Stranger Things finale. Some of them really liked it. Some of them didn't like it, whatever. Every single person I have personally spoke to that went to go see it in theaters said they loved it. And I think that says a lot to like the environment doing that. So anyway, I'm glad you wrote that in. Thank you for that, Shadowy. Next up, Nathan the Baron sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate that, man. Who writes, I saw over 80 movies in theaters this year. Nice. Thanks to Alamo Drafthouse's membership. $20 for one movie per day. Wow. They have that kind of a deal. That's really good. And Alamo gives a great movie-going experience. Have you ever been to the Kubrick-inspired Alamo in Austin, Texas? I don't know. I know I've been to an Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, Texas, but I don't know how many there are. And the last time I went to one was the last time I went to South by Southwest. This is years ago, like at least a decade ago, I think. And it was a good experience. I liked it a lot. It wasn't my favorite, but I really did like it. All right. That's a good sounding, by the way, Nathan. I didn't know they had that. $20 for one movie per day. That's a great deal, man. I mean, nobody takes advantage of that, I'm sure, but that is amazing. All right. And thank you again, Nathan, for supporting us on that level, man. All right. Next up. Let's see. Where are we here? Oh, yeah. We're at Go Pala writes, I know Stranger Things is getting a spinoff, but is this actually the end for the original characters? Is this goodbye to the OG kids or bye for now? Rob, I don't actually know. I think how much the Duffer Brothers actually do with Netflix is really up in the air right now, because we already found out that one project they were working on with Netflix is now gone. The Duffer Brothers have a new deal with Paramount that they're going to be doing. I've heard there have been some reports saying that there's going to be a new Stranger Things that takes place in the 90s, but totally different. Instead of focusing on the Upside Down, it's going to focus on the Rock that we got introduced to in the finale, which is interesting, but I don't even know if that's actually going to happen. I think we're done with the kids. I don't think we're going to meet the characters from Stranger Things anymore. What do you think?
I think you're probably right. I mean, I think that after 10 years, they probably have to go in some kind of a different direction. I'd be curious to see where they go, but I thought that ending I liked the finality of it. I mean, it felt like, yes, the story's done.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Next up, we got Shadowy Fauna who writes, thanks for explaining why Netflix did concession vouchers for Stranger Things, but I don't recall that happening to K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm curious why, because contracts are different. Remember, Sony produced it. That wasn't a Netflix produced thing like Stranger Things is. Sony produced that, licensed it out to them. It's an animation. Contracts are completely different, made in a completely different way. So that's why they can go ahead and put things like Wake Up Dead Man or Frankenstein in theaters for a limited run. But, for something like Stranger Things, the contract was different, so it turned out differently. Good question, man. Next up, Shadowy writes in again and says, often my problem with an ending is that the resolution is rushed after the main conflict is over. Stranger Things took its time to give all of its major characters satisfying final send-offs. It was perfect in my opinion. I don't know. Like, let's put it this way. I agree to the point that the final battle with Vecna and the Mind Flayer ends. Then I feel like everything was well-paced, well played out. Rob, for example, the scene with the four older ones on the roof was insufferable. Like, absolutely insufferable. The dialogue was horrible. Nothing that was said was interesting. There was nothing that gave new context or new whatever. It was just insufferable. And I felt like it dragged on and on. That to me wasn't a good send off. I thought just the ending of the action sequence was a great send off. And then, of course, the D&D scene was absolute perfection. But yeah, I didn't really feel like it for the rest of us. Was there anything in those? Did you have a favorite of those send-off montage at the end of Stranger Things?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, I liked seeing, I did like the Hopper scene, but it all, like, that's not what I didn't tune into that show to watch that. That's why the post-ending scene of all this, those characters don't mean enough to me that I want to watch where they're going. Save the world and then end it with a 5-minute montage, and then the D&D game with the new kids.
Yeah,
it all felt like they kind of didn't know how to sustain it, but they gave us, they figured we love these characters so much. Look, they're great characters, but I don't love them the way I like, say, Star Trek characters. So to find out what they're doing with their lives later, I'm like, I don't care. Make it more apocalyptic.
All right. Next up, our friend Kevin Rubio says 6 Feet Under had the best series finale. You know what, Rob? To this day, I've never seen the final season of 6 Feet Under.
Oh, well, Kevin's right. That final episode where it did a time jump, it's really good. It's really good.
I've totally forgotten about the series. I'm going to have to go back and get caught up on that at some point. All right. Joseph writes, any books besides Hail Mary that you read/listened to last year that you recommend? I read a bio of Ted Gazelle becoming Dr. Zeus. Could make a great biopic. I can't really think of any off the top of my head. Like, most of the reading I do is all nonfiction stuff. I don't read a lot of fiction. But anyway, Rob, do you have any others that you would think would make great ones?
There's so many books I could recommend, but if this is a very dark, there's a book I read a couple of years ago that I reread again this year called Blind Sight by a guy named Peter Watts. It'll blow your mind, but it's pretty tough going, to be honest.
All right. Next one comes to us from Espinoza, who writes, with Stranger Things now over, what will be the new flagship show for Netflix? Whew. Well, I really think for the last couple of years, there's really been 2 flagship shows for Netflix. One has been Stranger Things. The other's been Squid Games. I don't know what kind of carries over and kind of becomes the new torchbearer for Netflix. I don't know, Rob, do you got any thoughts on that? Like, what's their big thing right now? I don't know,
because, I mean, what do they have? Maybe there's something that we're forgetting. I mean, do they have a Severance?
Yeah, I can't really think of the next.
They have,
somebody in the live chat is saying like One Piece. One Piece is great, but it's not going to be their flagship show.
Yeah. It's also got
somebody suggesting Wednesday, maybe until Wednesday season 2 came out, and they saw their numbers drop a lot. Bridgerton is popular, but not with enough demographics. Like, that's the thing about Stranger Things. Everybody could watch Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Young people, old people, men, women, straight, gay, rich, poor. Like, everybody watch that. I don't think Bridgerton's the same way. Three Body Problem is wonderful, but
I can't wait. Where is that second season?
Yeah, I can't wait for that one to come back. So I don't know. I think that's going to be the billion-dollar question that they're going to be wondering is, what's the next one? All right, Shadowy Fauna writes, James Cameron, Rob Rodriguez, and John Landau, rest his soul, have sworn to make an Alita 2. Do you think we'll get that before or after Avatar 4? It ain't happening. It ain't happening. If it does, it'll be a straight to a streamer at about a 25% of the budget. And listen, I'm saying this is somebody who ended up really liking Alita Battle Angel. I didn't think it was one of the top 10 films of the year, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good. But nobody went to go see it. And I don't think that's going to change. And so if they can say that all they want, James Cameron keeps saying he's going to do another Terminator, and he's got 2 more Avatar films, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that. And well, I don't think Robert Rodriguez has anything going on. but no, I don't think we're going to see it. Rob, what about you?
I like Alita a lot, actually, but I don't think we're going to get another one. I just don't. That's not a cheap movie to make. It's not an easy movie to make. But I don't think we're going to see another one. It also didn't make enough money really to justify the expense of making another one. I don't think.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, somebody's like, people are saying in the live chat, "Oh, I believe him. James Cameron said he would." Doesn't fucking matter. Who's going to pay for it? No studio's going to greenlight it. Now again, I don't have any insider information. They could announce an Alita 2 tomorrow. And if they do, great. I really like the first one, but nah, I really don't see it happening. All right, next up. What do we got? Earthling writes, what is your favorite one location film? Okay, so Rob, sometimes people cheat a little bit, and that's fine with one location because, well, actually there was a 2-minute scene that happened in another location. I'm going to say one location film qualifies where like 95% of the movie happens in one location. There's two I'm going to say. One is the Sylvester Stallone film Oscar. Because 95% of the movie all happens in the house on one day. If you have not seen Oscar, it's one of my favorite Sylvester Stallone movies. A younger Marissa Tomei, why am I freezing on the name of the iconic actor who played Pennywise in the original miniseries?
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry is in it, who's fantastic in it. I just watched on New Year's Eve, we hunkered in and watched Jurassic Park again. Remember the lawyer in the original Jurassic Park?
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the Vincini brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Very nice in Oscar. So watch that. My other one that is a true one location. And by one location, I mean 7 feet by 3 feet location. It's Ryan Reynolds' movie Buried, which is I honestly thought Ryan Reynolds should have gotten an Academy Award nomination for that movie. Buried takes place where this guy wakes up buried in a box 7 feet underground, and the entire movie takes place in that box. It never leaves. And it's awesome. I love it. Anyway, Rob, you got a favorite one location movie?
I have two, even though the very beginning is not at this one location. But my favorite one location movie is Night of the Living Dead. George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. It all takes place in that farmhouse. I know at the beginning it's in a graveyard and they run to the farmhouse, but the whole movie takes place in the farmhouse. The other is the Tom Hardy movie.
I was going to say one of us is going to bring this one up.
Lock, where, I know I'm coughing. He drives in a car the entire time. He's in a car driving the entire movie, talking on his phone. Riveting. So Night of the Living Dead and Lock.
All right. Let's see. And guys, that'll do it. That's it that we have here today. So that'll wrap up today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Hey guys, listen, Monday, the news cycle will be all back on. We'll be firing on all cylinders, right back to normal. We hope you guys will come back. Keep your guys' eyes open on the channel this weekend. I'll probably do an open mic this weekend sometime. So keep your guys' eyes open for that. But that'll do it today. Rob, thanks so much for joining me here today from the Observatory.
I just wanted to say, John, that this day, this show, actually the real anniversary would be in April, but this 2026 marks the beginning of decade number 2 that I have streamed with you.
Our 11th year.
Our 11th year. It was April of 2015 where John Schnepp roped me into coming in on, I had no idea they did YouTube shows about comic book characters or movies. I had no idea there was an AMC Heroes, but I was on the 6th episode. And that was the very first time I ever streamed on YouTube.
That's right. I still remember that. I still remember when we hit the 1 decade mark. and we commemorated that day. And anyway, guys, I hope you all have a fabulous weekend ahead of yourselves. Have a great time. We'll talk to you again in a couple of days. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.